Welcome to Water Talk with Paul the Waterman, brought to you by Water Pros. Paul the Waterman is Colorado's expert on all things related to the water we use and drink in our homes. Have you ever thought about where your water actually comes from? Is it safe to drink? Is it harmful to my health, my skin, or my hair? Paul the Waterman knows water, and he has the answers. So get ready to talk to the Waterman yourself right now. Call in with your questions to talk with your host, Paul the Waterman.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Water Talk. I'm Paul the Waterman. Glad to have you with me this afternoon. Man, I'll tell you what. Yesterday, I ran into 3 separate cases of turbidity. Turbidity is floaty dirt, and it was all over the metro area. Started out east on I-70 in Byers, then went up north to Fort Collins. We had turbidity in the well water, and then went to Nunn, Colorado, turbidity. And so what turbidity is, it's floaty dirt. It's what it is. It's organic matter, makes the water cloudy. So if you got a glass of water and it's gray and you can't see light through it, or you can barely see light through it, and it just sits there and it just stays cloudy, that's turbidity. Turbidity, if you look on the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations, it is listed as an unacceptable contaminant. Turbidity is the measure of cloudiness of water. It's used to indicate water quality and filtration effectiveness, such as whether disease-causing organisms are present. High turbidity levels are often associated with high levels of disease-causing microorganisms, such as viruses, parasites, and some bacteria. These organisms can cause symptoms such as nausea, cramps, diarrhea, and headaches. So I want to start the show with this because this is unusual. Normally, turbidity is something that we see, a couple times a year. So I was really shocked to see it one right after another. And so, we went to the home, and if you pull the lid off the back of the toilet tank and you see gray silt coating the bottom of the toilet tank, that's turbidity. So turbidity, it is dangerous because of what we just read. It could bring in viruses, can bring in bacteria, and coliform bacteria could be very common associated with turbidity. And with turbidity, it's going to plug all your appliances up. It's going to, any kind of inline filter that you have, it's going to plug that up as well. And so what we want to do with turbidity, this is the pickle. You have floaty dirt, so any kind of inline filter you try to use is going to fill up and plug up quickly. Now remember, well pumps do not like pumping against resistance. Now, what happened in the first case, some folks in Fort Collins, they had to get a new well drilled. Apparently the first well that they had, brand new home, beautiful home, brand new well. And what happened is the well casing, something happened with that, so they had to, get a new well. And so with a new well, you can get sediment. Absolutely can happen. And, in brand new well construction, it's really important that they, use gravel as a base. So, you have a well depth, and then you have your pump depth, okay? And then what they normally do is they lay this gravel down, so as the pump is drawing water, as it's sucking up water to be, pushed into your home, any dirt that's there would be captured by that gravel. That gravel in the bottom of the well acts like a filter. Well, with turbidity, what that is that's just, again, it's floaty dirt, and it creates a havoc issue. So the water hardness has to be dealt with, because the only way to remove turbidity is through an ultrafilter, ultrafiltration. Now, ultrafilters, what they are, they're like a series of reverse osmosis membranes, but like commercial-sized membranes. So think of them about 3 foot long. So your standard under the sink kitchen reverse osmosis membrane is probably about, no more than 12 inches long in length. So, the ultrafilter is, 3 times, 4 times that long. And so what they do is they pleat it. And so it allows, a nanofiltration, but only at like 0.1 micron instead of a standard RO membrane is a 0.001 micron. And then as the floaty dirt passes through, it captures the turbidity. So then what you have to do is you have to have a holding tank in addition to the ultrafilter, and that stores clean water so the ultrafilter can backflush and rinse off all that turbidity in clean water. However, it can't function with hard water or iron in the water. So now you have turbidity, you have floaty dirt, and all that floaty dirt will plug up a filter, right, as I mentioned, and well, you have a water softener. The floaty dirt is going to go through that water softener, absolutely, pass right through it. But you got to get rid of the hardness. You have to get rid of the iron content. So it's necessary. You know, everything when it comes to water filtration really starts with soft water. It does. Because your filters function much better with absence of hardness and iron. So with the turbidity part and the floaty dirt, with PEX pipe, PEX pipe is new homes, majority of them, you got the colored, the blue and the red for hot and cold. But I like the clear PEX pipe that they're using because you can really tell what's going on. So you take a flashlight, take the light on the back of your phone, and you put it right up against that pipe, and you see all the dirt in the pipes, the turbidity. So they have a reverse osmosis. So they have an existing dual tank water softener to fight the hardness and iron content. And then we put in a reverse osmosis and an ultraviolet light. But with turbidity plugs everything up, just makes it, unfortunate, nasty, dirty. Even with reverse osmosis, the reverse osmosis will do a really good job at removing turbidity. But after a while, now this is a point of use under the sink reverse osmosis, that floaty dirt is going to overrun the reverse osmosis. So we're going to go ahead and put in an ultrafilter form. We're going to remove the turbidity, but we still have to do the pre-treatment. And based upon the amount of turbidity, think about this, the turbidity can fill up inside the water filtration system, couldn't it? If you have a dual tank water softener, which is absolutely what I recommend for well water, any hardness and iron content, that turbidity is going to pass right through. So the ultrafilter is going to have to be designed or backwash, when I say I get it set up, based upon the amount of the floaty dirt that you have. And so, if you're out in a well and you have a glass of water and you look at it and it's cloudy, that's turbidity. The next thing I would do was go to the bathroom, pull the lid off the back of the toilet tank, look inside that toilet tank, and if you see that gray silt settling on the bottom, it can be brown, that's what it is. It's turbidity. And the issue then is, reason why turbidity is listed on the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations as a contaminant where basically 0 is recommended. So think about this. If you're on well water and you have turbidity and you get a water test done, 9 times out of 10, turbidity test is not performed. And the only way really to do a turbidity test is to pour it into a glass, and then they have these glass vials that, based upon the amount of turbidity and the color and then the light penetration, that's how they measure it. But any amount of turbidity is unhealthy because, again, it could bring in contaminants like bacteria. Viruses, isn't that amazing? And this is the government document, and it mentioned viruses, such as whether disease-causing organisms are present, high turbidity levels often associated with higher levels of disease-causing microorganisms such as viruses, parasites, and some bacteria. And when you're on well water, you absolutely have to think about that because your water is not monitored, your water is not treated, and it's not disinfected. That's a good thing because then you're not dealing with all the disinfectant byproducts that, are cancer causing, because when you live in town, your water is absolutely chlorinated, and then you have all the, side effects and problems with chlorination water. But with well water, you're on your own. The EPA clearly states that you're on your own. So that's why it's also important to think about adding reverse osmosis or, ultraviolet light filtration as well. Will zap viruses and bacteria, but again, you have to have clean water because cloudy water would make an ultraviolet light ineffective because the light can't penetrate through the cloudy water created by turbidity. And then the floaty dirt could coat the ultraviolet filter itself. And then if you create shadows, it's ineffective, and then just everything passes on through. But I find it interesting that they use the words parasites and organisms. Again, this is the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations. This is I carry this with me because it's something that, I think everybody should understand, have a copy of, because this tells you exactly what's in the water, not to mention we have the PFAS problem and the antibiotics problem and the microplastics problem. But turbidity, holy moly. So with floaty dirt, as you remove it with the ultrafilter, you have this holding tank. It's usually about 33 to 35 gallons. It looks just like a pressure tank. If you have a well, you know what a pressure tank is and what it's for. It's there for, a storage of water. So if you use a little bit of water at a time, it doesn't mean that the pump always has to kick on. And then you usually have the setting where it's like use 60% of the water in the pressure tank, and then bam, the pressure switch tells the pump, hey, we need your help here. The pump kicks on and starts providing water. So you have a holding tank next to the ultrafilter, and that is where clean ultrafiltered water is stored. So then when you go through the rinsing process of an ultrafilter, it's using clean ultrafiltered water to rinse the membranes. And so you program that backwashing based upon, the old, take the glass, look at it, the cloudiness, and you say, okay, and ideally when you have turbidity, you pretty much want to have that ultrafilter backwash once a day. And so ultrafiltration is what we use to remove turbidity. Turbidity, again, it's something that, we saw maybe once or twice a year, but I just was so surprised that, yesterday, one after another, first three, all three customers had a turbidity issue. And here's another thing you find interesting. The customer in Nunn, Colorado, believe it or not, had naturally soft water. That's why I say Colorado water quality is a mixed bag of nuts. I mean, naturally soft water. He had some iron content, and he definitely had sulfur. So sulfur can be physical, and sulfur, so we took the aerator off his house, and there, sure enough, was the black chunky sulfur particles along with the gray turbidity that was in the water. So that application, I definitely recommend, a multimedia filter system that can handle, the iron content and the sulfur, and then you're still going to need the ultrafilter. Now, well water quality can change. Wells can settle, and it usually takes about a year to really get an idea of the kind of water you're going to have from the well. Now, doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. Again, well water quality can change. But I'm surprised at the amount of turbidity that's there, and I can't help but wonder, is it because of all the drilling that we're doing, the growth in Colorado? Is it because, the fracking, is that something? Fracking, a couple weeks ago, again in Fort Collins, went to a house, dual tank water softener to handle the hardness and iron content, and then all of a sudden the system quit working. And so let's pick this up after our commercial break. We'll be right back.
I can't take it anymore. My hair feels like straw, my dishes are covered in spots, and my skin, it's so dry it's like I'm molting.
Uh-oh, sounds like you've got hard water.
Hard water? What do you mean?
Hard water is water with high levels of calcium and magnesium. These minerals can build up in your pipes, slow down appliances, and, like you said, make your skin and hair dull and itchy. I bet you have soap scum too, right?
Oh man, how did you know?
Another telltale sign of hard water. But hey, don't stress. It's an easy fix.
Easy? Are you kidding? Anything to do with water is usually drawn out and expensive.
Not when you call Water Pros. They're Denver's go-to experts for water softening and filtration. They make the whole process simple, affordable, and tailored to your needs.
Really? But won't I have to deal with some big, clunky system?
No, Water Pros offers compact, efficient systems at competitive prices so more people can have access to soft, clean water. Say goodbye to crusty faucets, dry skin, and those annoying spots on your glasses.
Okay, now you've got my attention. How do I get started?
It's easy. Just call Water Pros at 303-862-5554 or visit waterpros.net. Paul and his friendly team will test your water for free and customize the perfect solution.
Free water testing and no more straw-like hair or spotty dishes? Sign me up.
That's the spirit. Trust me, Water Pros will have you loving your water in no time.
Water Pros, Denver's trusted water experts. Call 303-862-5554 or visit waterpros.net today.
Better water starts here.
What's in your water? Are you concerned about drinking hormones, antibiotics, or dangerous chemicals? Paul the Waterman here from Water Pros. Don't wait to be sure your water is free from those contaminants. Have our professionals help with affordable solutions. Visit waterpros.net today.
This is 560 KLZ, your home station.
Hey, welcome back to Water Talk. Okay, so where are we left off? So the dual tank water filtration system, again, was designed to remove hardness and iron content, and then all of a sudden it quit working. And it's like, what the heck happened? So we go there and we take off the injector cap, and that controls the water flow as it gets the detergent or the water softening salt. Water softening salt, saline solution, is the rinsing agent. So we wanted to make sure that it was getting the proper amount of detergent. But you know what I found inside there? It was like this Vaseline type gel substance. Never saw that before. And so what happened is that Vaseline product coated all the resin beads, and so now the system can't function. And I believe that had to come from fracking. I mean, it's just common sense, a dying commodity in today's world. I've always said that. And all of a sudden, where would that come from? You know, what are you going to do? What can you do? Well, you write a letter. The customer wrote a letter to the state that regulates the fracking and said, hey, I got a problem, and points this out to them. And eventually we're going to have to replace the filtration media. But you don't want to do that yet until you're confident that that problem is not going to come back. I never saw Vaseline type gel, I don't know what you call it, grease, coat a filtration system like that. That's amazing. So we're working on that issue, and eventually I hope that he gets the response, and so we can correct the problem and go back enjoying soft water, because hardness and iron content absolutely is going to, wreck the modern day appliance. Here's to hoping that the EPA comes to their senses and removes the water restriction that's been implemented, because hard water does not, help modern-day appliances. Modern-day appliances cannot handle any amount of hardness, really, because the less water you use, the more hardness is going to affect the operation of it. One last thing about turbidity. Majority of turbidity doesn't have an odor. So if you have odor, with it, that's, associated with another issue. Iron content, most likely iron and sulfur. And what I found is sulfur gas is something that absolutely slaps you in the face no matter what faucet you turn on. If you don't have it at every single faucet and it smells sulfury to you, that means it could be something that is like sulfite bacteria. That can occur. Now, sulfite bacteria can pick one faucet, it can pick two faucets, but normally sulfite bacteria is not something that you see at every single faucet in the home. You can also have high iron content. And check your aerators, because your aerators will show you exactly. First thing you want to do is take a look at the water that's in the back of the holding tank of the toilet. That's going to tell you everything that's in your water system, in your water lines, in your hot water heater. That's going to tell you everything. Then you take off your aerator and you'll see exactly what's building up. And if you see black little chunks, it's sulfur, physical sulfur. And physical sulfur can accumulate and create that smell. Now remember, sulfur gas, H2S, is something that when you turn on, no matter what faucet you turn on, that smell fills up a room and it fills it up immediately. Just so you know. Now, sulfur gas can be treated. I'm not a big fan of aeration filtration, and let's go into aeration filtration. So we've had some folks that use aeration filtration systems to remove iron content. Let's talk about that a bit. Ferrous iron or clear water iron does not instantly oxidize. So if you're using a aeration filtration system that has berm or green sand, and then behind the control valve, you'll see the screen, and it's supposed to, inject air into the unit. And so the theory is, well, it's going to oxidize the iron, and then the iron, the physical iron, is going to settle in the bottom of the filter media, berm or green sand, and then you go through a backwashing process of, running water through the media, and you're supposed to run water at such high pressure that it causes the iron to bounce off the media and go down the drain. So this week, I happened to talk to a gentleman that has one of those old-fashioned iron aeration systems in his home, and this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it because we were able to communicate and have a debate or a discussion without it getting personal, getting angry. That was refreshing. That doesn't happen a lot in today's world, does it? Okay, back to the point. So every, I think, month or every couple months, he was telling me he chlorinates the water in his lines. And that right there was the key that his current system isn't working because he has to chlorinate. So here's my point. Well water in berm or green sand filtration systems, the water pressure coming from the well is not enough to agitate those two medias. Berm and green sand is extremely heavy. You're talking close to 100 pounds per cubic foot. So it's not going to lift. And when you have water coming into a filtration system, the iron is called ferrous iron or clear water iron, so it does not instantly oxidate. So, and the only way to effectively remove iron through a filtration system is through water softening resin. Ion exchange resin grabs that clear water iron or ferrous iron immediately. And so when aeration systems are implemented or installed and someone's using them, you will get iron bleed through. And so my point was to him, your current system isn't working. And he was saying, well, it is working. And then once he told me about, well, you know, he runs chlorine and he puts enough chlorine in it. He has a filter, an inline filter. He puts enough chlorine where he runs the water. He smells the chlorine in the cold water side, shuts it off, smells the chlorine in the hot water side, shuts it off, and goes to every single faucet and does that. So what is he doing? He's bleaching or cleaning out his lines because the current aeration filtration system isn't working. So anytime you chlorinate your well, first, if you do it in the wellhead and you dump chlorine down there, to me, that is not a good idea because chlorine content can eat away at the earth that is surrounding your well pump, and you can create an issue that you didn't have before. Secondly, a lot of chlorine will create carcinogens, trihalomethanes and dioxins. And then when you chlorinate in the house, that's a Band-Aid. That's not a permanent fix. And so, you know, with a dual tank water softener, you'll remove that ferrous iron completely because, again, the water softener grabs it. The reason why you want a dual tank water softener is because they alternate tanks back and forth, but you take clean water from one tank to backwash the other tank. The reason I love the clack valve, the clack valve is made in Appleton, Wisconsin, good old USA. Smart computer technology, but the clack valve has one moving part, and the clack valve does not require a pre-filter. Now, there's systems out there that are 35, 40-year-old technology, probably getting close to 50-year-old technology now I think about it, that, you know, require no electricity. However, you have to have a pre-filter before that because any kind of particle will plug up that non-electric control valve and it won't function properly. With the clack valve, you don't have to worry about pre-filtration. And 9 times out of 10, you're not, you know, blowing so much sediment that it requires one. Because here's the thing about pre-filters on well water, especially if you have iron content. Pre-filters iron, okay, by design, that filter will slow the flow rate down. And as you're slowing the flow rate down, what's going to happen? Iron's going to oxidize inside that filter. And then when you shut the water off, what's going to happen? Iron's going to oxidize inside that filter and build up. And once iron oxidizes and converts to a solid, no matter what kind of water filtration system you have, physical iron's going to pass through it. And that's what happens with a dual tank water softener. If you got physical iron caused by pre-filter, it'll pass through it. So the best thing you do is have no pre-filtration. Let the water softening resin do what it's designed to do, and that's remove the hardness and remove the iron content. So think of water softening resin as like its own little mini planet. It has a negative charge. The hardness in the iron has a positive charge, and so it's attracted to it. And then based upon the cubic foot of filter media, the degree of hardness and iron content that you have, then what happens is that's how you set up your salt dosage. And your salt is the detergent. So that saline solution rinses through the media and releases all the hardness and iron that's collected. It goes right down the drain. And that's why they call it ion exchange. And ion exchange means you're exchanging one for the other. So the calcium, the iron, and the chloride go down the drain, and then you're left over with sodium carbonate, which is baking soda, soda ash. It's a non-acidic item, so it's not going to corrode your pipes. It's not going to affect your hot water heater at all. And water softening technology has been around really since the 40s. In the 1940s, the first water softener was done by Mr. Culligan, and Mr. Culligan did exchange tanks. They didn't have the control valve. And so that was the service. They'd deliver exchange tanks, and they'd come back, and then they'd set them up and regenerate those tanks at their warehouse. And then eventually Mr. Culligan, Mr. Lindsay, and a guy by the name of Fleckenstein, Mr. Fleckenstein developed the Fleck valve. The Fleck valve now, Mr. Fleckenstein's company went out of business. A company called Pentair purchased the Fleck valve, and the Fleck valve is used. I believe Rainsoft is owned by Pentair now. They do the Fleck valve. Majority of the Fleck valves that are sold on the internet today, that technology is every bit of 50 plus years old mechanical valve. The Clack valve, that was developed in the mid-40s. The Clack family, still independently owned and operated. They're over 50 years old, and the Clack family, to me, manufactures the best valve in the world today. There was a company in China, I believe, that tried to copy it. I believe they called it the Cluck, believe it or not. But that was done, maybe 10 years ago when I saw that. But I think the Clack family, that was stomped out, and that's no longer out in the market today. Anyway, with one moving part that the Clack valve has, it's easy to operate. It only has one injector, and that thing's like the Energizer Bunny. The Clack valve keeps going and going and going and going. So, all right, well, listen, let's take a break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about city water issues after this.
If you have hard water, smelly water, or water that just tastes bad, improve the quality of your water with the professionals at Water Pros. Water is a precious resource that's a part of everyday life. Harmful cleaners, forever chemicals, microplastics, and pharmaceuticals end up in our water supply, and they don't just magically disappear. Water treatment should not cost tens of thousands of dollars or require long-term financing. For KLZ listeners, a complete Water Pros water treatment system start at only $31.95 installed. See why people are trusting the professionals with Water Pros. Water Pros is a family-owned and veteran-owned business dedicated to providing you the best in water treatment for less than the other guys. Go to waterpros.net today and request your free water test. Or call 303-862-5554. That's 303-862-5554. And ask for the KLZ Listener Special. $31.95 for a whole house water softener and point of use reverse osmosis.
With forever chemicals in your water, it's crucial to think about the quality of your water. Paul the Waterman here for Water Pros. Be sure your water is safe with affordable solutions from Water Pros. Visit waterpros.net today.
You're listening to 560 KLZ, your home station.
Welcome back to Water Talk. Okay, city water. City water has such a variety of contamination issues. It's just mind-boggling today. If you go to the Water Quality Association, the Water Quality Association website is www.wqa.org. That's .org. It's a non-for-profit organization, and this is a great resource for you to research water issues, water contaminant issues. And, we talked about pharmaceuticals. So we have pharmaceuticals, there's personal care products, there's endocrine disrupting compounds and their metabolites. It's anything that eliminates from the body. So, it's, again, going to the restroom, you're putting pharmaceuticals in the water supply. Flushing unused or expired products. Leaching from landfills, rinsing off in the shower or bathing, agricultural runoff. This is the source of where we get these, contaminants. And the Water Quality Association lists these. They put them all together. So if you search PPCP and EDC, you'll find a fact sheet. And again, that stands for pharmaceuticals, personal care products, endocrine disrupting compounds, and their metabolites. So what happens when we take a pharmaceutical and metabolites? And then when we get rid of it, it's in the water. And, it's something. It doesn't disappear. And how do we know it doesn't disappear? Because we've had people on this show that design water reservoirs, and they've tested the water that they use to fill the reservoirs, and they've stated that every major over-the-counter pharmaceutical tests in the water. So there's our issue. The problem I'm worried about, and not much now because I think they're going to get a handle and think they're going to stop certain procedures that were scaring the heck out of me. But one of them was puberty blockers. That's the last thing that we need in our water supply. Those who choose to augment their bodies and choose to, augment their children's bodies, and puberty blockers are very dangerous because that's a sterilizer and there's no coming back from that. The other thing that you have to think about is the over-antibiotic of our nation. Everybody gets an antibiotic. And so now we've had bacteria that's becoming antibiotic resistance. Case in point, I'm sure everybody has had a sinus infection or a really bad bacterial-based cold. They've gone to the doctor, and eventually you have to go to what they call a disease specialist, infectious disease specialist, because then they have to test your blood, test the type of bacteria you have, and make the right medication. And the medication is a stronger, basically, antibiotic, and that's something that's documented and recorded. And then, heaven forbid, if you're one of those unlucky ones, that is antibiotics about bacteria, antibacteria being found in California wastewater, waste treatment. And see, that's another thing that scares me too when it comes to city water. Think about this. How can you find a virus or a bacteria in a waste treatment plant? Because that water is and should be chlorinated. Now, in Colorado, every bit of the metro area uses a chloramine. Remember, we talked about that last week, I believe. That chlorine mixed with ammonia is a chloramine. That in itself created an unregulated organic compound that is basically, they're discovering is, harmful to the human body. So back to that topic. I'm going to, again, repeat what I've mentioned before, that there's disinfection byproducts. Now, what that means is that these disinfection byproducts come from the sanitization of our water. And they are bromate, chlorite, and trihalomethanes. Trihalomethanes are created purposely because you have no choice. You mix organics with chlorination, trihalomethanes. Okay. Back to my point regarding bacteria. How can a bacteria or even a virus survive in a waste treatment plant? Because that water should be chlorinated. So what that tells me is that the bacteria and the viruses over the years are evolving where they're becoming chlorine resistant. So the chloramine, by adding back ammonia to the water, chlorine won't dissipate. Chlorine is a gas, right? And so straight chlorination by itself will dissipate. Thus, you put chlorine in a swimming pool. Does it last forever? No. You have to constantly monitor the chlorine level and add more chlorine, right? There you go. So when you add ammonia to the chlorine, it won't dissipate. It won't break down. It stays. So if they can test for a virus or a bacteria in the waste treatment plant, that should alarm everybody. That's a big red flag right there. Now, side note, this is where you want an ultraviolet light filtration system that's UV filtration, ultraviolet light filtration system, to support a reverse osmosis with the water softener, obviously, unless you have naturally soft water, and some folks luckily do, to give you great drinking water and water for cooking. That's absolutely, I believe, a necessity. See, the 1% of the water that we use for drinking, for making soups, Super Bowl's coming. How many people are going to make chili? Green chili, chicken chili? I like chicken chili. Anybody out there make a good chicken chili? Man, oh man. Okay, what kind of water are you going to use with that? You should use reverse osmosis drinking water. I would. Doesn't it make sense to only use the best? The ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light kills viruses and bacteria. Why is that important? Because what we just talked about. If you're going to get a virus testing positive in a waste treatment plant, and we saw it happen on TV, didn't we? They test for the COVID virus right at the waste treatment plant. And bacteria. If in the city of Los Angeles, California, the super bug, they call it, the bacteria that's antibiotic resistant, was found in wastewater in Los Angeles, California, that should be alarming. That's like, holy cow, red flag, because that means that it's also chlorine resistant. Not too far down the road, what happens? And I could see this happening, that we have bacteria in our water supply even as it's being chlorinated. Or viruses, even as it's being chlorinated. Viruses viruses are something that evolve because they want to live. If you think about it, to my understanding, it kind of, they're almost like the Borg, the big collective. And the virus is designed to get weaker and weaker because if they kill the host, then they die off. I mean, these are questions that we really have to think outside the box on, because water is health. Water is life. What happens? All right, think about this. Those muskmelons that got the contamination that came from the Colorado farm, and it killed everybody, made them super sick. How do you think that happened? That contaminant was in the water and got into the muskmelon. So the plant absorbed it. Luke, what was the name of that? What was that? What was that? I can't remember. Anyway, it was, what was it, a couple summers ago. But that's the ideology you have to think about. So water is absorbed by the plant, and it's used, plants grow because they need water, right? What happens if you don't water your vegetables? They dry up and go away, especially at this elevation in the sun. On a side note, I'm really excited about this weekend. 60 degrees, man, I can't believe it. I'm looking forward to that big time. Okay, so with water, and if you get a virus or a bacteria that gets inside that plant, there you go, contamination. Now, what else do we know we have in the water supply right now that, should be another oh my gosh factor? Anybody out there want to guess? Okay, you ready? Yep, that's right. PFAS. PFAS contamination is all over the world. We have found out that PFAS have been a contaminant that's been going on for over 50 years. 50 years. 50 years, it was known the first human to test positive for PFAS. Now, PFAS contamination probably has gone on longer than that, since, the 70, 75 years. Since the first Teflon. And PFAS, how did that happen? The Manhattan Project. Did you, I haven't found that out yet. But how in the heck did they accidentally discover PFAS developing a nuclear bomb? A nuclear bomb, and I got PFAS. Well, it's almost like a nuclear bomb because this PFAS just contaminated the world. So we got PFAS in the farmland, right? PFAS, check this out, perfect storm. remember where PFAS contamination comes from. Again, yep, the sewer plant. That's right. The sewer plant takes, they call it biosolids. So, not to be gross, but human waste, okay? Human waste is then taken out of the water, and that's a biosolid. And then that biosolid is given away for free so farmers can use it for fertilizer. And if it's loaded with PFAS, we're in big trouble, and that's what happened. We showed you farms. We knew about farms in Texas that got shut down, a farm in Wisconsin. We know about farms in Maine. We knew about a Christmas tree farm where, you know, the husband got sick and died of liver cancer, and she has thyroid cancer, and the PFAS in the soil. PFAS are all over, and I hate to say it, but I'm concerned. We even read an article regarding PFAS in Arapahoe County. But do they test for it right now? No. And we can't trust our state lab because guess what? The state lab here in Denver got shut down because 2 lab people, lab analysis, do you call them scientists, people that test the water, were fudging the results. So the EPA pulled their license. Isn't that amazing? So we're not testing for PFAS. And the bigger issue, and this is all in the big bowl of soup here that we have to eat, you got PFAS contamination that they're not testing. They got biosolids that you have to get rid of biosolids. What happens if you get a bunch of human waste and you take it out of water? This is where it's gross. Castle Rock, 35% of reusable water. So they're going to take all the human waste out, and then they're going to disinfect it with cancer-causing agents and give it right back to us. Pharmaceuticals are going to be in the water supply. So anyway, what do? So PFAS is the other big one. Now, to solve this problem, starts with soft water. Get your water tested. Have a water softener because soft water absolutely helps when you want to filter using reverse osmosis filtration and ultraviolet light filtration as well. So you can take control and filter your own water. And that's why we're here doing this show, because Water Pros has that solution for you. But I just feel like it's absolutely my responsibility to try to bring it to everybody's attention what's going on out there. And one, ask yourself this. Do you think about your water? Do you think about the quality of your water? What about the beer? What do you think they make the beer out of? That in itself should be alarming enough for every man out there to say, hey, wait a minute. Coors, supposed to be, Rocky Mountain fresh, water, make Coors beer, but it's all PFAS and microplastics. There's another contaminant, microplastics. So we also found that, University of Colorado, and I also think Colorado State University, they got together and they tested every major body of water in the state of Colorado, and it all tested positive for microplastics. Let's take our last break.
The EPA is making changes in regulations for water safety because of elevated levels of lead, Gen X, and forever chemicals in water supplies. Locally owned and operated Water Pros has home treatment solutions ready to install today. Water Pros employs the latest technologies and an expertly trained staff to help you with hard water, lead in your water, and mitigating forever chemicals. Book your complimentary test and consultation now, waterpros.net.
Hello, Paul the Waterman here for Water Pros. In the last 6 months, you've received letters from your local water company regarding the dangerous forever chemicals in your water. Several local news television outlets have done segments on the dangers in our drinking water. Trust me when I say pharmaceuticals are the next issue. Water Pros employs the latest technology and an expertly trained staff to help you with hard water and mitigating forever chemicals. Book your complimentary water test now at waterpros.net. That's waterpros.net.
Forever chemicals, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and total chlorine are real contaminants in our water. Clean water is essential for our everyday life. Water is the best flushing agent our bodies can use. We cook with water, we bathe in water, and we grow our food with water. Call Water Pros for your free in-home evaluation. Water Pros can educate you about the concerns of forever chemicals, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and total chlorine and discuss ways to remove these contaminants from your family's water supply. Call 303-862-5554 and request your free evaluation, or go to waterpros.net to request your free in-home consultation. WaterPros is a family-owned, veteran-owned business dedicated to offering the best solutions to meet the needs of the water concerns we have today. Call 303-862-5554 today or www.waterpros.net. You're listening to KLZ 560 AM, your home station.
Welcome back to Water Talk. Thank you for being with me. I think I have the best intro music in the business today. I mean, I love this song. Sometimes I don't want to talk because I just want to hear it more. I mean, that's a great song. So here's the thing. With all the contaminants that we have in our water, this is something that's been accumulating for years, but no one really talks about it. I think their theory was, well, it's such a minute contaminant. Its contamination is so small, it's diluted in water, it's really no big deal. And I know for a fact that's what they were thinking. But that was wrong, wasn't it? Because guess what we learned? It started out at a part per billion with the PFAS contamination. They used the analogy. 1 part per billion. You take an Olympic-sized swimming pool, 1 drop of PFAS equals 1 part per billion, and that was bad. But then, after the EPA finally got involved, now remember, the EPA first knew about this since 1998, finally gets involved last year and does a webinar and says, okay, now you want it down to 4 part per trillion. 1 part per billion to 4 part per trillion. So you see, and I've always said this, you don't need a large number to have a contaminant. You don't need a large number to have hard water. Okay, the other thing that you have to think about on this level is all the other contaminant from like the microplastics, and now we have nanoplastics, and then back to the PFAS. The Gen X chemicals that are now part of the PFAS family, Gen X chemicals were created once they realized that the PFAS were bad. So let's make Gen X. Now Gen X is just as bad as the PFAS. And when they sent this letter out last year to Adams County and Denver County, self-reporting that the PFAS levels were greater than what the EPA would allow, what was their plan? So we know how you can remove it. Activated carbon is 1. Reverse osmosis is number 2. And aniline resin is the 3rd way to remove it. But we need Elon Musk to solve this problem. Elon, if you're listening, which I believe he is, can you get your guys and try to create this big super machine that can just get all the PFAS out of the soil, out of the water? Because it's a really bad, it's a global contaminant. And we know that China and India are not having the same discussion about PFAS like we are, so their contamination is still going to affect the world because PFAS are transported by rain, just like nano and microplastics transported by rain. So, point of use, reverse osmosis will remove and help with pharmaceutical contamination, PFAS contamination, nanoplastics contamination, viruses and bacteria if it's supported with an ultraviolet light. I have family in Miami, Florida. They have naturally soft water. They have a whole house filter system. They have the point of use reverse osmosis, and they need to get an ultraviolet light. The science proves it. If you're getting viruses and bacteria that are testing at a municipal waste treatment plant, that tells you that's alarming, that there's a big problem, that those viruses and bacteria are still living in water that is being treated by chlorine or chloramine. Now, the Denver metro area, the city and county of Denver has been doing this the longest, but during COVID, every major local TV station did the test about the COVID virus, and it was showing up in the waste treatment plant. So what does Denver use? A chloramine. So A live virus should not be testing positive in a waste treatment plant because we know that there's chloramine water there, because every time, majority of the folks, unfortunately, don't have a water filtration system. So that means that every time you run the water and you flush the toilet, there's chloramine, and that chloramine doesn't dissipate. I know for a fact chlorine doesn't dissipate because we've gone to homes and we've tested for total chlorine content, and we test it in the hot water, and 9 times out of 10, the hot water heater has a higher level of chloramine than what the cold water does. So that means that it's accumulating in the hot water heater. So that should be alarming. That means that when you go take a shower and you're running that chloramine, it's going down the drain, it should be absolutely going back to the waste treatment plant. The only thing I can think of that would disrupt that would be all the dirt and gunk that's in the sewer lines. Because chlorine can be an oxidizer, but you're not separating it. But it could also, it's an oxidizer. I was at a home the other day. They have a chlorine injection system, and they have a backwashing iron filter. This kind of proves my point. So the backwashing iron filter wasn't getting all the iron out, and then they have downstream, they have this chlorine injection pump. They have this little bitty pump, and they have this holding tank. It's full of bleach water, and they inject it in the lines as they use the water. And well, what was going on? All that chlorine was being absorbed by the iron in the water. So the iron was in the water because it was escaping the iron filtration unit that they had, that aeration unit. And when you pulled the lid off the back of the toilet bowl, you saw these little bitty iron balls. So in theory, you should have positive chlorine in the water if you have a chlorine injector. So if you don't have a chlorine injector, if you have a chlorine injector and you're not getting all the iron out, we know that chlorine is an oxidizer. So maybe I'm answering my own question here. If we have other contaminants, chlorine is an oxidizer, maybe that's what's happening. So then when we get to the waste treatment plant, bam, there's nothing there to kill the viruses or bacteria. Maybe that could be it. But regardless, single tank iron filtration systems will not work. I'm not a fan of chlorine injection systems because the chlorine injection system shows that the single tank iron filtration system isn't working because it's oxidizing the iron that's escaping from the filtration unit. But then what happens is that you're chlorinating the water, and now you have carcinogens in the water as well. So in an ideal world, well water, dual tank water softener, ultraviolet light filtration, point of use reverse osmosis drinking water. Ideal. Live in town, WaterPro's Echo Pro Max, which is a multimedia system that uses KDF55 activated carbon and resin. So we'll attack the total chlorine, the PFAS, hard water, and support that with the ultraviolet light and reverse osmosis water filtration system. We just have to take it upon ourselves to treat our own water. And we really got to start thinking about our water quality because water is life. Now, how many people out there know folks that have, got cancer? I run into a couple of folks, talked to a lady today. It's a sad story. 29-year-old daughter-in-law has, tumors on her pancreas and liver. A lot of young people are coming up with cancer. Why is that? Is it because of our water? Is it because of the food we eat that is, contaminated by water? And can't we really say that water is contaminated? I mean, it is. Is it safe for human consumption? This is a legitimate question to ask. Is water safe for human consumption? I think the studio thinks it's the weekend because now it's like air conditioning coming on. It's like it's setting up for Saturday. Oh, no, Monday I think it's supposed to be 71 degrees. All right, well, listen. I appreciate the discussion. If you have questions, you know how to reach me, 303-862-5554. God bless everybody, 303-862-5554. See you next week.
Remember to reach out to Paul the Waterman with your questions and water filtration needs, and be sure into Water Thursdays at 2 p.m. to talk with Paul. For more information, find him on the programming page at klzradio.com.